There are a lot of great transit systems out there that don't fit cleanly into one of the categories that we often think of, and instead incorporate different features from multiple categories. Today we're checking out an example of such a mixed mode system in Barcelona, the FGC railways. These lines seamlessly combine the best aspects of both a high-frequency metro and a robust suburban railway that isn't just oriented towards commuters. While these lines aren't without their issues, I think they offer lots of useful learnings. Let's go take a look. The FGC as a company is less than 50 years old, but the two major railways on which it operates have been around for way longer than that. We'll start with the Valles Line, which dates all the way back to 1863 and was first built to Iberian gauge. In 1905 it was reconfigured to standard gauge, largely due to a vision from American railway engineer Frederick Pearson to connect the railway to France. That never quite happened, with the outbreak of World War I halting the plans. The line did, however, become the first anywhere in Spain to be electrified, so it's got that going for it. That's just a super condensed version of the history. If you'd like to learn more, there's an incredible video from a local with English subtitles that you can watch after this. In the present day, the Valles Line starts at Plaça Catalunya, right in the center of Barcelona, and it has 4 branches. 2 of them terminate within the city, with the other 2 continuing into the county of the Western Valles. Each one serves one of the county's 2 main cities, Terrassa and Sabadell. The service patterns are pretty simple. The first metro-branded service, the L6, goes from Catalunya to Sarria, where it terminates. You might be thinking, why doesn't it just go onto that branch? Well, that branch is a 2-stop shuttle known as the L12. We'll talk about why it exists a little later. The L7 uses the other branch within Barcelona, splitting off at the main line at Gràcia. As for the suburban services, S1 uses the Terrassa branch and S2 uses the Sabadell branch. Let's start our trip at Plaça Catalunya, the terminus of the line. FGC services are behind their own fare gates, and the station has plenty of detailed signage with schedules and maps. At platform level, which looks really stunning, there are 5 tracks used to turn trains very quickly. Take a look at the departure boards, showing the next 8 trains. The 8th one leaves in just 15 minutes. That should give you an idea for just how frequent trains run in the main urban section of the line. I'm heading up to Sarria first, so I can take any train bar an L7. The first one leaving happened to be an S1, so that's what I went for. This train here is a Class 113 built by Alstom and CAF in 2014, with level boarding, in some parts at least, digital wayfinding, and even USB charging ports. One interesting thing to note is that L6, the metro-branded service between Catalunya and Sarria, runs less frequently during the morning rush hour in order to fit more S trains. In fact, between 7:30 and 9:30 am on weekdays, there are a total of 0 L6 departures. It is worth mentioning that Sarria, the station that I'm headed towards, will be served by the central Line 9 and 10 tunnel once it opens. If you'd like to learn more about that project, go watch my previous video. Here we are at Sarria, where I'm going to change to L12. So now let's talk about why that short shuttle exists and why it's not part of L6. When the station was first built, it had 4 tracks, but also 3 super narrow island platforms. As you can imagine, that made the station rather inconvenient for people with reduced mobility. To fix that, it was decided to cover up one of the tracks, resulting in one much wider island platform. Now that tracks were reoriented, L6 couldn't continue onto the branch, so it had to be split off as a separate service, and thus L12 began running less than 10 years ago actually. And I think another benefit of the L12 being split is that, as we mentioned earlier, you can remove some L6 trains to replace them with S trains during morning rush hour, and not lose any service to Reina Elisenda, the current other L12 station. I will say I've never seen this much advertising in a 2-stop shuttle train. Making my way up to track 4, which really is a misnomer now that there's only 3 tracks, the L12 train seemed quite busy for what is such a short distance. Even the inside of the train had a rather spacey feel to it. So here's Reina Elisenda, the current terminus of L12. The line won't be a 2-stop shuttle forever though, as there are plans to extend it west to meet with another line extension, namely on line 3 of the TMB Metro. Originally it was supposed to go even further, but the 2008 financial crisis and a change in government halted the ambitious plan. Back at Sarria now, Why go down and up again to change platforms when you can just walk through a train? Man, I love the Spanish solution. Anyway, I had to change platforms because I'm heading north again, this time on the S2 all the way to Sabadell. This train is slightly older, a class 112, and it shows here on the seats. As we leave the city, frequency naturally drops a bit, as we're rightfully in commuter rail territory now, but that said, headways on the S trains are pretty respectable. They're super frequent in the morning rush hours, but there isn't really a single clear peak time in the evening. I suspect that might be to do with how it's common in Spain in some workplaces to take a break in the afternoon and thus get out a little later, but I don't want to be painting with too broad of a brush. Anyway, on weekdays, it's not until 9 PM that frequency on each S line drops below every 10 minutes. If there's one regard where the Valles Line does fall a bit short, it's speed. My train never got faster than 80 km per hour, and they're only able to do up to 90, which for a suburban line with wide stop spacing is not great. It doesn't help that the line is notably bendy, but fortunately the headways make up for that. As we start to make our way into Sabadell, we go into a subway tunnel. This section of the line is indeed known as the Sabadell Metro, which opened just 10 years ago and brought the Valles Line further into the city, including a connection to Rodalies. The line used to terminate at a station on the surface, which closed following the opening of this underground extension. This concept of running a regional rail line underground like a metro in a secondary city that may not have a full-size metro isn't unique to Sabadell. It's quite popular in other parts of Spain, such as Zaragoza, as well as Malmö in Sweden. And you could even argue that BART does that in Oakland, Berkeley, and eventually San Jose. This area outside the Plaza Mayor station has a pretty quaint vibe with plenty of seating and dining outlets nearby. Sabadell itself is home to just over 200,000 people, and the city has long boasted a strong workers' movement and Catalan identity that were quite instrumental in toppling Francoism. The Valles Line is the main focus of this video, but there's another similar line operated by FGC. The Llobregat-Anoia Line is a meter gauge railway with just 2 branches further along the line, and its total track length is around 3 times that of the Valles Line. The service patterns here are much more focused on the suburbs, with just L8 getting a metro designation and each S line simply being a short turn somewhere up the line. And then there's the 2 R lines, which go so far that they get a different prefix and skip some stops. And if that's not enough, during peak hours into peak direction, you have a couple runs of super express versions of the R lines. The terminal station in Barcelona is Plaza España. Here we are now, and on that note, I have a trivia question for you. What does Plaza España have in common with Powell Station in San Francisco? Stay watching to the end to find out. Once again, the station has very detailed schedules and maps, useful since it can be quite confusing to know which train to get. I feel like the line would benefit from doing what almost every Asian metro system does, numbering the stations. Keep the names of course, but it's much easier to make sense of which train to get if you want to go to say station 25, just take a train that terminates at a number no less than 25. Now this wouldn't make sense for limited stop trains, but that's what maps are for. If you've never seen meter gauge tracks before, here's what they look like. And yes, it gets its name from being exactly 1 meter wide. The trains here are the Class 213, and while most doors require a step, there is a lower section that provides level boarding, with markings on the ground clearly pointing you to that area. I only went a few stops to Europa Fira, which is right at the heart of the Plaza de Europa. In what is quickly becoming a meme on the channel, L'Hospitalet, it's a sea of high-rises with notable contributions from Japanese architect Toyo Ito. But I've come here for one reason, and one reason only. Now that's what I call transit-oriented IKEA. Overall, the FGC lines left quite a lasting impression on me. While they probably aren't the best commuter rail lines I've ever ridden, not even close to be honest, it presents a rather noteworthy approach to the concept. The combination of dense stop spacing in Barcelona itself and constant use of the corridor even in off-peak hours really does make it feel like the best of both worlds. Calling the short services metro lines aren't just for show. Even though it's operated by a different company, this is an integral part of the Barcelona Metro. That's going to do it for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. Oh, and the answer to the trivia question is that both stations have 3 different track gauges in one facility. Well, that is if you count the cable car loop as part of Powell Station, of course.